Okay, Morbius is bad. Recently, my friend and I went to go see Morbius last Friday, and let me tell you, we were in the theater completely alone. It was literally only us two. And that should be a really good idea of like how bad this movie did, and it completely flopped. One thing I also wanted to get out of the way before I got into the movie is like Jared Leto. All right, now he's been clowned on for this movie and the Joker, and basically what he's getting clowned on is for like method acting, which is basically when you take the role of your character outside of filming, I believe. And basically on the set of Joker, he was like sending like dead rats and other stuff like that to like his co-workers and pretending to be the Joker even when the cameras like weren't on. So yeah, that's why he's gotten hate for that, and I'm pretty sure he did the same thing on Morbius. At least I think. I'm not sure. So yeah, as far as Morbius, I don't know. I don't entirely think the acting was bad as much as the script was bad. I feel like a lot of actors can get hate, especially when the writing and stuff doesn't really do them any justice as well. Like actors are good. Like Brad Pitt, Leonardo, all those people. But like, if you gave them a really bad script, how much can you really do with that? But now for the movie. So, the opening shot. You're in Costa Rica in some mountainous area, and Morbius and some like other mercenary dude come flying in on a helicopter, and they land near this cave, right? And they get out, and they take out some like sci-fi weird machine thing, and they put it by the entrance of the cave, and it opens up, and it's like a bunch of strings running vertically like across like maybe like a few feet, and they're just like suspended in the air in this like machine thing, but that's not really too important, I guess. They show bats that are inside the cave, right? And Morbius walks up. He's got his crutches. He looks sickly. He's very thin, obviously, because the preface of the movie was that he's sick and that he needs to, or that he means to cure the sickness that he has. That sickness, of course, being a very rare one that a lot of people have, and that he wants to save other people from suffering from. So, Morbius walks up to the string thing, right? And they're like energy strings, I don't know. But he cuts his hand, and he just puts it out, right in front of the strings. And then all of a sudden, the bats start going crazy. They start flying out, like right at Morbius. And all like the mercenary dudes who are with them start like running away in the helicopter. And then it just kind of zooms in on Morbius's face, and then just cuts away to 25 years ago in Greece. Like, like you're not gonna explain what you were doing in Costa Rica, because it wasn't self-explanatory at all, at least in my opinion. And then you're just gonna go 25 years back in Greece. That makes no sense. But then they cut to a hospital, right? A car pulls up. There's like a bunch of doctors and stuff outside, and a kid comes out. He's also very sickly, and he's walking up to the doctor. The doctor like puts his hand on his back and pushes him, or not pushes him, but like brings him into the hospital. He introduces him to this other kid, and mind you, we don't know who these two kids are at the time. But the kid being brought in, his name is Milo, and he has the same illness as Morbius. They're children, because 25 years ago. But brings him in, he introduces him to Morbius, who was already, who's already at the hospital because he was he was sick as a kid as well. And when the doctor introduces him to Milo, he looks to Morbius and he says, "Play nice." And then right off the bat, I'm like, is he hurting the other children? Like, why would you have to say that, Unless Morbius was just a jerk of a child, I don't know. But after that, he starts going on about how, oh, your name's Milo. Well, there was also a Milo 1. I don't even remember his face. There's Milo 2. There's a Milo 3 and all these other ones. And I was like, were there actually other kids named Milo who just died and you don't remember them? If so, did they have the same illness? If so, why aren't you dead from that? I don't know. But for the most part, this kind of backstory is supposed to set up their friendship because they're like friends in the future. And basically what happens is Morbius just gets a grant to go to school at some really prestigious like institution or whatever because he fixed Milo's like life support thing with a spring and a pen, or it's the spring from the pen. But yeah, he fixed it with that. The doctor was like, oh, you're smart. I don't know how he did that. I don't know how he knows how to do that, but apparently he did. So he goes there, and then it fast forwards back to the future when Morbius is an adult. I believe we're at the same time from the bat part. I'm pretty sure they're the same age. They look the same, all that. And it cuts to Morbius being in a hospital with this other sickly child, presumably one who has the same illness. But she's pretty unimportant. She doesn't really come up. I think she comes up one more time in the movie, but really has like no other relevance besides that. Anyway, he gets out of that room because this other doctor who's the love interest, I forget her name, but she's pretty much the love interest in the movie, and they go to a different room where she's like, oh, you're pushing yourself too hard because like he's acting really tired and all this stuff. And then there's this big like tube in the middle of the room, and Morbius opens it, and there's a bunch of bats, right? And then you're like, oh, those are probably the bats from the Costa Rica cave. They don't really say how they got them back because all they brought was a helicopter and that stringy machine thing. So maybe that was it. Whatever. The lady is like, why do you have a bunch of bats? A good question. And he was like, they have something in their blood that we can change up to use and make it cure the sickness. That's about as much reason as I can make from it. So then after that, Morbius does an experiment. He takes a rat and injects it with the blood from the bats that he, messed with. It's artificial blood, so that helps cure the sickness or whatever. But he gets the injector thing, sticks it in the rat. He starts a timer. He's like, okay, test 1. It starts like twitching and stuff, and then it dies. And then he's like, oh man, it didn't work. And so then the girl doctor and Morbius, they go back into the sick girl's room. They start like talking to her and doing whatever. And then the girl doctor turns back around and sees that the mouse or rat is moving again. So it did work. And then the most like backward logic happens. Then pretty much some other stuff happens, and then you get on a large barge ship. That's the shot. They're on a large barge ship, and Morbius, the girl lady, and like 5 other mercenary dudes who look like dads who should belong on Home Depot on the weekend are all there. And Morbius is like, okay, it's time for human experiments. And let's just get like a good idea of how this progressed, right? So you have the rat experiment, which kind of like it worked. You injected the artificial blood successfully into the rat, and it died, and then woke back up. And then we're like fast forwarding to a human experiment. That doesn't sound very ethical or right. Just because like the first time you did it, it worked kind of, doesn't mean you just go straight to human trials, right? Am I wrong for that one? Because like it died still, and that's also a rat. You don't even know how that's gonna affect a human, and that was like the first trial, at least that we saw. Or actually, no, there was an audio log later on the ship where he was like, "Oh, test 243" or something like that. But if that's still the first time it worked, you think you'd still try to like replicate it some more to make sure this was completely safe. But no, he just skipped straight to the human trials. In all fairness, it was the first trial was on him, but that still is questionable at best. Okay, so like I said, first test was on him. He gets the girl lady. They're still on the ship, by the way. He gets the girl lady to inject him, and for some reason, he gets injected in the spine, but he lays back down on like the chair thing, the chair like bed combo that you see at like the physician's office and stuff. And she straps him down. I don't know why. When my friend and I saw that, we were like, why would you need to strap him down? Why would you need to strap this sickly man down? But anyway, one of the mercenaries who like you can identify as a Home Depot dad comes down and he's like, so what's going on here? And then the girl lady's like, you're not supposed to be here. And then the other guy was like, well, I have a gun, so what are you gonna do about it? And then the girl's like, well, nothing. And then they turn around, right? And Morbius is just gone. He's not on the bed anymore. So they go search for him, and they're like, okay, where did he go? They find him on the wall, I think, or is the roof of like a separate room. And they're like, how are you doing that? Then he turns around and his face is all messed up, and he's a vampire now. That's when he turns into a vampire. So he gets down, he attacks the gunman dude who just starts like emptying the clip on him. Doesn't hit him a single time, because he's got like super speed and like, I forget, do they have like echolocation hearing or something? But he's got that, and yeah, so he kills the mercenary dude. The rest of the mercenary guys come down because the first one called him down. He was like, we have a dude literally on a wall right now, and it's not Spider-Man. I'm gonna need some help. So they come down, they start firing out at Morbius, and one of them like pretty much knocks out the lady, and they just run away. Like they just knock her out, and they're like, no, you kill her, and then they just bolt to like some room just with a bunch of pipes. But yeah, they knock her out, and then Morbius like gets to her, and then she's like, no, she friend, and just moves on. So then he goes and kills the rest of the crew. And then after that, he gets back into his human form and realizes what he's done. Actually, not really, and I'll get to that in a second. But he sends out a mayday call, like the CIA or like the FBI comes out there, brings the shit back in, and starts investigating everything. And then the one investigator, for some reason, also Tyrese Gibson is in this as like the main investigator, and then he's got like his buddy as the other investigator. And I thought that was just like really weird for some reason that Tyrese Gibson was in this movie. But he asked his friend like, hey, what happened? And he was like, all the bodies have been drained of their blood. And then that's when he's like, oh, that's vampire stuff. And then he's like, everybody else is also dead except this lady, but she's been moved to the hospital. And they're like, okay, cool. Morbius goes back to the lab, right? And he's just like, whoa, I have all these powers now. I wonder what I could do. I wonder what extent I can push myself to. And literally the fact that he killed 8 mercenaries never comes up. He never once like reflects, really, besides the time on the ship. It's like he killed people. And this is like our protagonist? Are we supposed to be rooting for this guy? Like throughout the entire movie, my friend and I were like, like Spider-Man didn't kill people, or at least not like people who wasn't like the enemy necessarily. Even then, I don't think Spider-Man kills people. Iron Man, Captain America, like none of these people are killing other dudes, and they were mercenaries on the ship. Like they were there to protect him and the lady and the ship because like they have a bunch of scientific stuff and like research that they don't want to get out just yet and stuff like that. So why would you kill them? And we learn that he can turn into that state, into that like vampirical state where he's just like conscious and he knows what he's doing. He's aware. So like, was he aware when he was killing all those people? Was he not aware? Is like what changed now? And now also he can resist blood. Like he can see blood and be like, oh, you know, I want it. You know, my vampire side comes out, and I'll act all but like he's not gonna kill you. So what happened that time? You know, and the movie never goes back to that. It's all over like the news reports and stuff, but like Morbius and the main characters and the investigators never really go back to like he just killed 8 people. Morbius gets back to the lab. He starts experimenting, realizing his new limits and stuff, and like we kind of hear all the exposition of like his experiments and research on himself through like audio recordings. So basically, one of the things is that he can't go more than like 6 hours without more artificial blood, because that's what they injected into him. It works, but it turns you into a vampire. So one could argue really if it does work or if it works as intended, which probably not. But yeah, you can't go more than 6 hours without it, and there's still a limited supply of artificial blood. So while he's doing that, the investigators go and see the love interest lady in the hospital, and she won't really budge on anything, but pretty much the entire thing is like they find out she works with Morbius, and apparently nobody knew about that ship. I mean, he's like a researcher who's trying to fix this like rare illness and stuff, and we saw in like an earlier scene that he was being recognized by like the king or I forget who it was, but somebody in Sweden about it. So like, isn't his research known? Why would he be so secretive on some ship out in the ocean to do this, and why wouldn't anybody know, right? So like, why is that something that isn't ever really covered? Because it's not. They don't really go back to it and be like, why were you out in the ocean with 8 mercenaries doing your research? Why couldn't you just do it in your lab? But basically they find out she works with Morbius, and then later Morbius locks himself in a little like containment area and doesn't give himself any blood, just to see like how that affects him. And then Milo comes in out of nowhere and is like, well, not out of nowhere, he does show up early in the movie, but it's not really very important. He shows up and he's like, oh my god, are you okay? Because Morbius is like twitching and he's just not looking good. And then Morbius is like, blood, I need blood. So Milo gets the artificial blood, gives it to him, he's good. And then Milo's like, oh, so you found a cure, give it to me. And then Morbius is like, no, I can't, it's too dangerous. And then Milo's like, oh, you are being selfish, I've been living with this condition for all this time, and the second you found a cure, now I can't have it. And then he turns into like his vampire self. For like a second he flashes it, like his face just kind of flashes vampire, and he's like, this is why. Then Milo's like, oh no. So then Milo leaves, and Morbius is still in the laboratory area, and he also realizes that he needs to leave. But what he doesn't know is that Milo snuck out a bag of artificial blood, and that'll come up later. Okay, so now Morbius realizes that he needs to leave because he's seeing like I believe the news reporting on him, and he realizes that the investigators are going to be coming around to see him soon. And for some reason, like the investigators aren't ever like, Tyrese is never like, he was definitely on this boat because she was on that boat, she was with Morbius, and why wouldn't he be there? Like, why wasn't he on the boat when we found it? How are you like not like showing up now? Like, where did you go? How did you get out? All that kind of stuff. And so he gets like a backpack, fills it with artificial blood. I'm talking about Morbius. Puts on a hood, gets his crutches, starts trying to leave the building. But the investigators are already there. They catch him. He's like, hey, we need you for questioning. And then they kind of get like suspicious, like, it's kind of weird how 8 people died, and the only one there was this lady who definitely didn't do it, and like, you were definitely there and you definitely did do it. And then he was like, oh no. So then he like assaults both of them and then runs away. He gets to the top of the roof, like he finds the staircase, turns into his vampire self, and just hops up the staircases, like a bunch of staircases at once. And this officer shoots at him, and then Tyrese Gibson comes up and just like gets up there in like 5 seconds. And we're like, how did you get up there immediately after Morbius when he just vampired his way up there and you just like walked up the stairs or ran or whatever? So that was something. But then they bring him in for questioning, and again, nobody's questioning how, because they don't know about the artificial blood and like if his condition is cured. They don't know that yet. So nobody's gonna question how he like got up. Excuse my astonishment, but like how he just got up the staircase and like went 8 flights of stairs at one time, and he has to use crutches to walk on a daily basis. They're not going to question that because they come into the investigation room and don't even like really address that. Instead, what happens is Tyrese Gibson and his buddy get in there, and they're like, they start talking, and Morbius is like, "Oh, I'm really hungry. You don't want to see me when I'm hungry." And then the dudes are like, "Okay," so they just leave, and then Morbius gets put into a jail cell. Someone's like, "Hey, your lawyer's here," and so Morbius is waiting, and guess who it is? It's Milo. He walks in there with his cane, and again, they don't know. Morbius doesn't know that he got a blood bag, so he walks in there, and he's like, "Well, this sucks. You should really just accept what you are, all this other crap." And he was like, "I brought a gift for you," and he brings out a blood bag, right? So Morbius is like, "Uh-oh," and then Milo leaves, and he leaves his cane behind, and then the camera is like watching Milo's feet as he walks, and it goes from like a limp, and then slowly just goes into like a normal walk, implying that he got the blood, he drank some of it, now he's a vampire too, and he's all good. So then Morbius drinks the blood, he's like, "Milo!" and breaks down the jail cell, gets out, still in his prison garb, he's going full vampire mode again, uses his echolocation hearing to find, to like hear where Milo is. He's just walking down the street. So he's just walking, and Milo gets this like magazine stand, which is like really weird. And not the magazine stand, but he does something weird, and he's talking to the dude who's running it, and he's like, manners are important. And then the magazine dude is like, "Well, whatever." And then Milo just kills him. He just switches to vampire really quick and just kills him just on the street. And like after that, when Morbius catches up to him, he's just like chilling, walking still, like nobody said or did anything about that. So basically, Morbius is like, "This is dangerous. This is a mistake. We can't do this." Milo was like, "Well, we've been like this. We've been sick for so long. We deserve this. Leave, get out of my way, or accept it, whatever." They get into a fight, a vampire fight, and they end up in a substation where they're both about to get arrested, but then Milo kills the police officers. Milo gets away. Morbius goes back and finds the lady, who I think is released from the hospital by now, and basically it's just an accumulation of time, really. Like it's like, I feel like the time in between the last like final battle between Morbius and Milo is just kind of nothing, really. Milo like has this scene with the doctor who brought him in the flashback, and he was like, "You always liked Morbius more than I did," and he ends up like killing him. So that happens, and then Morbius gets a new lab because the one he got isn't like available to him anymore because like the police and all that. But basically how he finds a new lab is that he follows these two like sketchy dudes to their lab, like where they're printing fake money somehow. I don't know how he knew that. Not that how he knew they were printing fake money, because like that was established earlier, but I don't know how he knew they would have this freaking lab that would just be suitable for like all his research. But yeah, he gets that. He pretty much beats him up and kicks him out, which again, how is this a protagonist if he's hurting people? That doesn't really compute. But then pretty much just fast forward to the final fight between Milo and Morbius. And one thing that was set up before the fight is that Morbius is like, "Okay, so before I go fight Milo, this will be the last day that I have artificial blood. After that, I'll have to start, drinking human blood." And that's not okay. So, yeah. Then he goes and fights Milo. After Milo kills his girlfriend, Morbius not falls for the trap, but basically Morbius goes and finds the dead doctor dude who he was also close to. And he's like, you need to stop Milo. And then Morbius is like, fine. But then Milo finds his girlfriend, kills her. And then Morbius finds the girlfriend. He's like, oh no. So then some of his blood gets into the lady's mouth. And he drinks her blood and then leaves. So, yeah. And then he goes, finds Milo. Final battle starts. Milo's like kicking the crap out of Morbius somehow. I don't know how he's so good with these abilities now, and Morbius isn't. But basically, Morbius is like, "Oh, I'm defeated," and he's got his hand in this puddle, like he's completely face down, and he's got his hand in this puddle, like in the underground, and he calls the bats to him, and they come in, they start flying all around him and stuff. And then Morbius gets up, and then he starts messing up Milo with the bats. And then Milo goes in for the final blow. Morbius is like, no. And then he's like, bats, go forth and protect me. And then the bats pick up Milo, and he like throws him onto the ground. And then Morbius pulls out this like tool thing that instantly kills people with like the type of blood or something that they have, and he sticks him with it. Milo dies, and he's like, how could you kill me? And it's like, dude, you were killing people. First of all, you tried to kill him, so like, yeah, you deserve it a little bit. And then Morbius pops out of like the sewer system, which is like, well, they weren't in the sewers, but they were in some like underground place. But he like pops out of like a sewer grate. And Tyrese Gibson and the other investigator dude were like right in front of it too. And then it's just Morbius as his vampire face with a bunch of bats spewing out of the little hole. And then Tyrese Gibson and the other dude like, whoa. And then the girlfriend wakes up. So now she's a vampire. And yeah, that's the entire... And one thing I'd like to add before I end this is, who did he help? He didn't do anything. He killed people, he hurt people, he killed his best friend, he's now a vampire who can't go 6 hours without blood. Now there's no more artificial blood, and he said that this was a mistake, so if he made more to keep himself alive, that probably wouldn't be a good idea either. He didn't find the cure for the illness, otherwise it'll turn people into vampires, and who also can't go 6 hours without it, and then they'll run out of artificial blood and have to start getting regular blood. So that's that. Yeah, what was the point of this movie? Why we don't have a protagonist? He's definitely not the good guy. So yeah, that's about it. Okay, so now that that's all over, one thing I'd like to address is the Lego Star Wars review. I still want to get it out, but like I was going for like a really heavy editing centric like video, but I might just do something like this where I just kind of like talk about it over like a game that I play. So yeah, it's still taking a while because I got footage, my computer ran out of storage, all that crap. But yeah, thank you for watching if you did watch this far, and I'll see you next time.